Okay, so I want to do a little bit tonight on trading psychology. I think it's a huge topic that we haven't really talked about too much. I do one-on-one sessions. Bernie does one-on-one sessions, right? Markets and Mayhem should do one-on-one sessions. And I think it's a very important thing to kind of keep engaged with people, but really understanding, I don't talk to people to teach them how to trade, right? I talk to people to try understanding why they're having difficulties trading, right? There's a huge difference. So trying to get to know them on a personal level, because more often than not, the way that we react to things in general, right, can really impact the way we trade. And Alex and Bernie, you're more than welcome to take the mic and give any of your thoughts that you have on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I can. Yeah, my mic's open now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I like to actually tell people that I've been doing this for a long time. Obviously, many years. I like to remember. However, I have totally not suited temperamentally to be a trader. I'm just not. And a long time ago, at a very early age, I had to figure a way to deal with that. And then, of course, this is personal to me, but it might help some of you. I had to figure out a way to deal with that. And if you want to succeed, to figure out a way. So I try to remember back to the time. It's, we're going back over 40 years to remember. With me, it kind of happened organically. And I learned at a very early age, luckily, to actually do it successfully, to trade successfully. And, I didn't even trade the way I trade now, which actually requires much more. But I had to be somebody else when I traded. It's quite simply that. In other words, when I trade, I'm somebody else. And I do what I have to do to be successful at trading. Otherwise, it ends up in a real, you end up with a real problem. So, if you are having struggles with emotions or with focus or any of the things that make you be impulsive, any of those problems, and they're all problems common to people trying to trade. I mean, there wouldn't be one thing that any of you could tell me that I hadn't experienced myself at some time as a trader. People say, "Oh, you feel the pressure. How do you deal with the pressure of trading?" I don't. I would say to you that if your approach is right, you don't really feel pressure trading because you know what to do in given situations, and that doesn't mean that things always go right. Quite often they will go wrong, but it's really important to know what to do when that happens, and not to kind of lose your composure when it happens. Likewise, I know this is going to sound kind of odd, when things succeed, I would say the same thing. In other words, it's kind of like Kipling. In other words, they're both imposters. You have to deal with them the same way, so you don't get too high, you don't get too low, which is what my temperament would be. I'm not kind of an even keeled person. I'm very much up and down personally, but when I trade, I'm just on one plane, and it's all the same to me. And I get very mechanical at my best. I will be very mechanical in how I trade and what I do, and it's almost. And by now, I don't really even think about it. I just kind of do it. And that's really kind of the place you want to get to. In other words, that your discipline is so ingrained in what you do that and even then you will always be tempted to do things that you shouldn't. But you have to, either not do them, or that if you do get tempted somehow to do something you shouldn't have done, you get out of it immediately. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. If you do something you know you shouldn't have done, just exit it immediately. And I don't care whether it works or whether it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You want to have the same approach to trading on a consistent basis. You always want to be doing the same things that you need to do to be successful. And there's no necessarily not one right way to get there, but you'll find what works for you. And then when you do, then you want to kind of get a memory about that and really kind of make it integral to who you are as a trader. When you're trading, then you're in a certain mode, and you just kind of stick to that discipline. It is so important. It is so important to have that discipline when you trade, because if you don't have it, you'll be eliminated very quickly. The market's very Darwinian. No matter what kind of trading you're doing, whether it's swing trading, long-term trading, day trading, that applies to all those. The discipline to do what you're supposed to do, and if you stray from it or you can't master it, you're gonna be in trouble awfully fast. The market has a way of eliminating those folks who don't have the discipline to do what they need to do. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I just wanted to kind of give you just a sense of what my journey was to this. But again, I would have been the last person in the world who had the temperament to do this, and I've been doing it for a long time now. So, but I'm telling you quite generally, what my I don't know if it sounds strange or not to somebody, but I'm just kind of like an actor. In other words, a good actor probably becomes somebody else when they act. I guess especially if they're a method actor. But anyway, when I trade, I'm not myself. I'm a trader. I'm who I need to be to succeed as a trader, and that's kind of worked for me. So I'd be happy to answer anything or stay as long as you want me to.
Thank you, Bernie. We won't take too much time from your night. So Alex is on the line here tonight too. There were some questions that.
I mean, is there a place where people are writing?
Yeah, in after hours questions. Sorry, Bernie, I DM'd you after the fact. Yeah, it's under after hours questions.
Is there a place here?
Yeah. Do you see it, Bernie? It's after hours questions.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Bernie? I don't think you can hear me.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Okay.
Is there a place where people can ask questions?
Yeah, it's under
after hours questions. Okay. Thank you so much. I need to get.
There were some questions. Hi, Alex. How are you?
Absolutely. After hours trading room.
Markets and Mayhem's going to join us tonight too. There were some questions that were asked prior to speaking there, Bernie.
Right now, I have busy screen.
Oh, you're probably just on my DM. Just go back to the chat there, Bernie.
The premium category. It's
no, I know but how do I get back to that? Right now, I have busy screen full on the full up here.
Oh, like my stream here. How about I stop? Let me stop streaming. I'm not even. There we go.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
I don't have to share my screen. We're not doing anything.
See, now I'm seeing everybody's squares.
Is there a little red thing on the bottom that says stop watching? If you hover your mouse over the bottom.
Says disconnect.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
Effect. That's disconnected it from the voice chat. Oh no. Thought it would just take them off the video.
This is why I was like, we should just do this in Discord. I didn't want to confuse Bernie.
Yeah, so he'll find his way back in a moment here.
I was just going to touch on that. So some of those questions you guys asked about strategies for leaving emotions out of trading. So I don't know if you've noticed that, but a lot of my technical and price action strategies are actually equipped to do just that, right? Like, think about it. Look at my SPY trade, look at my Kroger trade, look at the timing of my trades. Do you know what's going to help you leave emotions out of trading? Time and respecting the time, right? And respecting the pattern that you're working with, right? So, and also respecting the timing of events that are about to occur or happen. So, and respecting the prices in terms of cutting losses. That's just as important. So a lot of leaving your emotions out is us forming that hourly inside bar. Do you know what I'm saying? So seeing the whole picture, so that knowing that on a break of 45667 and 4.5 SPY can technically go to 4.58 and 4.59, right? But someone that didn't know how to kind of control their emotions during that hour when it was having its inside hour, as it should, right? Because sometimes we need to do what? Sometimes we need to see red to see more green, right? And on a trend day like today, where markets are going up, right? The odds are already in your favor. It's the way that you control your emotions by watching price. So even kind of going back to how to maintain a positive mindset given the price action in front of us, the price action in front of you has nothing to do with your mindset. It's how you're controlling your own execution and reaction to the price.
There I am. I'm sorry.
Hi, Bernie.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
No. You're totally fine. Do you see it now though? Like the after hours questions or?
I'm looking at the. Oh, here it is. Okay.
Yeah,
Finally.
these were some questions that were asked earlier before you got on the mic, but I don't know if there's any other questions you guys have, but those were some that even I just kind of answered there quickly. So for myself, a strategy for leaving emotions out of trading, I emphasize a lot on time, right? And really, really, really respecting the time that I'm trading, the amount of time I have left to break something, the amount of time until a key catalyst or event's going to come out, right? That's why focusing a lot on these macro events. So for me personally, a lot of it had to do with time, right? And I think time, for one thing that we can all agree on, what's the one thing that no human has control over, right? And that works against every single one of us, right? Is what? Time, right? Like we that's one thing that's, unfortunately out of our control, but monitoring the time is in our control. So that's kind of how you can maintain, a strategy with trying to leave that emotion out. So just like SPY short today, I knew it only had till 11:32. If it doesn't break by 11:32, it's not a short. And that's exactly when it reverted and took out highs. So that, again, it kind of goes back to also being unique with time, right? Using odd time frames. So someone asked me that earlier because, again, it's not, people care too much about time frames and not enough about time. That's a perfect example of that. And Bernie and Alex, both of you, if you guys have, any other strategies that you personally use for leaving emotions out, that's just something I found out that helped me a lot. But
yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay. Well, I mean, I wanted to talk just a little bit about a couple of the approaches that I take to trading that I've found helpful, that I've learned from other traders, and I think both you, Izzy, and Bernie hit on a lot of really important points. So I'm going to try not to repeat what you guys have said, which are all things that everyone listening should take note of as they trade. But one of the things that I think is really important, like when we're trading, we have an idea. We're putting an idea to work. And when that idea doesn't work, it can hurt our ego, and that can cause us to make bad decisions. So it's very important to take your ego out of trading. You cannot get married to an idea.
Amen.
You cannot, find fault in yourself because the idea didn't work. It doesn't matter. You just take it off and move on to the next. And the sooner that you let go of a loser, the easier it is for you psychologically. The longer you hold on to a loser and the more it injures you financially, the more difficult it actually becomes to let go of it. So I think with trading, you have to be disciplined, right? And this is something that both Bernie and Izzy talked about. I just want to talk about what I look at for discipline, okay? So when you're getting into a trade, before you do anything involving placing an order or even looking at placing an order, you should know what your plan is. You should define what your comfort level for risk is before you even think about your reward. And you should try to quantify a risk that is far lower than the potential reward you hope for.
yes.
So that if you're wrong, you can keep repeating that strategy. And if you get it right enough, you're doing well, right? And what does that come down to? It comes down to getting your emotion under control, which is related to position and the volatility of what it is that you're trading. So it's really important to consider, is this thing going to move 10% against me in a day or 1% against me? What's my risk? So that you understand what you're setting up for, so that when you get in, the markets aren't going to surprise you and make you do something impulsive, or you might take or get you in a position where because the moves are beyond what your comfort level is. Or God forbid you're using margin, they go against you. The other thing that I think is really important, and I don't think this gets enough talk, in our circles, trading is very stressful. And what adds to stress is poor sleep, poor diet, lack of exercise, no meditation. And yet, most of us, if we're not having a good time, especially, we're not going to take as good care of ourselves because we're going through all this stress, right? Don't do that. Take good care of yourself, whether it's good times or bad. Eat well. Sleep well, take time away from the market, exercise, meditate, whatever makes you feel good, but do it, and do it enough that you don't feel like, whether you're winning or losing, that's defining your emotional outcome in the rest of your life. And then remember, it's not easy getting started. and you shouldn't expect yourself to be able to execute like Bernie or Izzy. Like, you're not going to just be able to snap, 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 because your neural pathways haven't been forged, right? You have to do these things repetitively. You have to learn the thought process, and then eventually it becomes ingrained in your brain, and it's much easier to do. Like Bernie was saying, it becomes almost automatic. That's really important. You have to be patient with yourself. So that's kind of the things I want to go over. I hope it's helpful. Certainly open to any questions.
That's very helpful. Yeah, and Bernie, if you wanted to even touch on any of those questions, or
I just wanted to kind of like addendum to what Alex is saying. All true. Everything he said is very, very true. More than one might realize. But the way to deal with those things, if you're new, now really kind of a lot of the people that I've helped and talked to are just green as could be, right? So what do I tell them? How can you relieve some of the stresses that would come? Now, Alex touched on them. We live in, and unless you're Canadian, you live in Canada. I mean, most of us have access to commission-free trading, which is great. And because if it's commission-free trading, you can use the size of, because I think you have to trade live. I'm not a believer in paper trading. That's my own.
I second that. Me too.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
But so since you have the ability to trade without commissions, you can use a lot so small that as you learn, it won't burn your capital if you make mistakes. So that's one thing. A size that doesn't add any pressure to you whatsoever. And then you can learn that way without doing financial damage to yourself. And then when you do become more comfortable, you can size up. And I tell new traders this all the time: cut your teeth on things that are more liquid, more slow moving. I found a beautiful one today. It was great until it really exploded, and then it moved like crazy. But that ALDX, I think I started that at 1:30 today. I'm not the wrong.
And that one was catching volume as early as Monday, Tuesday, right? So it's like the ones that I find too, a lot of what Bernie trades, I find that they slowly start accumulating, right, over time.
Yeah, I gave them the wrong time. ARDX. So you can look at this thing and how it moved. And this is just an example, and it's a handy one because it happened today. This thing, very liquid for most of the day. Very liquid, very, very slow. It gives you time to think. You don't have to be that fast at that point. And as you learn, then you become, when you acquire speed in terms of what you're doing, then it's fine maybe to kind of venture on but you can learn on a more liquid, slow-moving issue. You don't have to be doing something that's moving 1,000 miles a minute and spread 20 or 30 cents. I don't do those myself for the most part. If I have a piece of news or I have a particular setup where it has a defined setup where I think it will break out at a certain point, then I might indulge in something like that. But otherwise, I avoid them like the plague. I don't need to go there. I want lower hanging fruit, or either I'm always looking for the best risk reward. And for me, something that's really, really important not to do that. You'd be surprised how easy it is to do, how very easy it is to do. You'll always be tempted to do what is sexy. Everyone's, it's going up 10 points, and it's that's not how you're going. It's the lure of it is how much money a guy can make in one day. Seeing stocks go up 20, 30, 40 points. A lot of people get murdered in those things. I mean, they're just taken out of the game. And what Alex said about check that ego out the door. I mean, I joke a lot, but I have zero ego about doing this. Of course, it's, you know, if you're doing it a long time, you have less to prove if you're doing well. But if you don't, the market will destroy you will lose most money when you have the most conviction about something. Because and it's happened to me, I've got so much conviction about an idea that I'll let it go longer than I would have otherwise. That's got to be thrown out. You can be wrong. Every trader, I tell people I'm wrong 10 times a day. I'm just not wrong for very long. I address it really quickly, and that's key. You know, 4 kinds of trades: big red trade, a little red trade, big green trade, little green trade. You can do 4 of those and be successful. You can't have the big red trade. You just have to avoid it. You have to avoid that like the plague, because it'll wreck a day, it'll wreck a week, it'll wreck a month. And I see it all the time. And some of the best traders, people that are a better trader than I'll be saying something. But I mean, if you don't have that survival gene, forget it. You know, if you don't have the ability to know what you shouldn't do to risk serious damage to your account, you will not be around very long. I refer to it as survival gene. You know, knowing something you shouldn't do, you shouldn't go there because it would be too much risk. It'd be something that could really hurt you financially. You just don't put on the trade. And I know that sounds pretty basic. You would be very surprised. You'd be very surprised. I've seen people, great traders, know it all. They have everything down. They don't have that. They have everything else, but they don't have that. Gone. I mean, and you can see it in professional traders. You've seen traders that just blow up. I mean, it's happened with big names. So, have that. That's essential. You have to have that. So these are just some ways that you can take the pressure. Expound, Ralph. I'm curious. Because your experience would be helpful to others.
Ralph, do you want to jump on the mic, or do you want to type? It's up to you. I want to add a little to what Bernie was saying there too, right? So, and sometimes you're not actually wrong, right? So like a setup could have worked. So like today, for instance, on SPY short, I made money on it, right? It was right for a good 8 minutes, but I knew I had only 11 minutes and it started to revert back at the end of the 11th minute. So it's like, I would have been wrong had I not covered right away, right? That's where, the trade had potential to continue down, but it didn't by a specific time, right? Hence it reverted back up. But that's where it comes, knowing, okay, the trade didn't continue all the way, right? But you exited at the right time. If I hadn't exited at the right time, that's where I would be wrong. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of it comes down to, you have to know your plan for the trade before you're entering the trade, right? You have to really respect these things in terms of not just levels, but in terms of timing it, right? How long you're going to give that for it to move, expansion on volume, all these sorts of things have to occur, right? For you to kind of keep that trade on. Otherwise, at that point, then you become wrong. And sometimes you're just wrong right off the go. Like sometimes things just don't break. And even going back to like the first thing that Bernie had mentioned there too, in regards to, just killing your ego, right? A lot of what we do really reflects just, the way that we are. So if you can't kill that off early on, right? And even going back to, taking on proper sizing for your trades. So that's one thing. Another thing that I get asked a lot, quite a bit, is how much money should I start trading with? Okay, this is relative to everyone's own individual personal circumstances, right? It's not how much money you should start trading with. You can have a $200,000 account, or you can have a $2,000 account. It's all still relative to the amount that you're willing to risk, right? So people often think if they have smaller accounts, they have to put the entire thing in. And it kind of all goes back to how much you should be learning if you don't have the funds yet to actually take on the trades, right? So that's why I always say learning is earning, because if you can learn early on, it'll help you execute a lot better. And then you can start taking on more size. So for instance, if you were opening up a business, right? So think of trading as a business. This is your business. You're making money doing this, right? Do you go and open up a business with a net zero account, right? Well, no, like it's like you want to have that working capital to make sure that your business is successful and that you're not, stressed every day because you're not making money and your business is going under and you already started the business in deep debt, right? These are all factors that can really impact our mental health. So, and then hence our business fails. Think of it like a business formula. It's the same scenario. It's the same way of kind of just knowing how to understand just how much you should be taking on, and maybe that you shouldn't be trading at all yet until you have a comfortable working capital. If you're putting your last dollar in your account, you should not be trading. You should be learning how to trade until you're at a position in your life where you can start taking on those risks. I think of it very, very much as, okay, if I wanted to go open up a restaurant today, let's say, and I had no money in my account, I had terrible credit, right? I couldn't even get a loan. I had to borrow money off someone to do this, right? The chances of me succeeding are probably already limited because I'm already pressured and stressed about something that's monetary, right? So how is my business going to grow when I haven't even gotten to the stage of where I should even be opening a business? Do you know what I mean? Like you have to at least have, first off, an idea of the market, right, before entering it. I don't agree with paper trading, just like what Bernie said, but I do agree that you have to at least try learning the market, studying, researching, watching. These are all things that'll really, really help you in the long term, right? And then the monetary part comes after. Like if you start putting learning first, then you'll earn. That's why I always say learning is earning, because they kind of go hand in hand. If you come into this only looking to make money with money you don't even have, you're just going down a really terrible path, right? And I'm only saying this because I talk to many people, many that should not be trading because they don't even have the funds or assets to do so, right? And you don't need a whole lot. I'm not saying that you need $100,000 or even $10,000 to make this work, right? You can easily have $1,000 and still make this work, right? But if you're in a position where you don't even have a tiny working capital to start with, do you know what I mean? It's like you have to at least have a proper mental state to enter this game. Otherwise it becomes very, very hard, and it'll continue being hard because it's always going to be about the money and not about what you're actually trying to learn and grow from trading. I'm going to unmute you here, Ralph. You should be able to talk.
Out there.
I gave him access. He hasn't unmuted himself yet. I think he did now.
Here we go.
Ralph, do you have your mic set up properly and everything?
You know what? That's a great question, Godzilla. Great question.
I think that kind of goes back to what I was just saying there, right? If you're financially not in a comfortable situation when you're starting to trade based on life circumstances, that's where that's that whole mental aspect, right?
You know what? For me, Ralph is going to switch computers. I'd like to address that whole issue, because I always tell people, and this isn't about money. In other words, when you do this, right, and you develop some proficiency at it, it's, for me, I did it at such a young age that, you know, when I realized I could do it, And once that happens, that's not something anybody can take away from you. That's something that you have. So for me, during very, very difficult times during my life, and everybody has them, that was my hook. That was kind of the thing. That was my rod, because I had that. I knew I could do that. And instead of, I never let anything interfere with it. I have to say it that way, because you can't let anything. I mean, through illnesses and through family situations or whatever, when you do that work, when you're a professional, and it's a period of time where that's all there is. There's just the trading. You go back to the personal issues, whatever, when you're done working. I mean, surgeons go through that type of thing. You think they don't operate on people when it's life and death, or people in war? Think of what they have to do. So this is easier than those situations, right? You don't have somebody's life, literally on the line. You might have your financial life on the line, but you don't have somebody's life in your hands. You don't have somebody shooting bullets at you. So when you're doing this work, I mean, really, that's your role. That's your job. That's your thing. And, as you get better about it, you will develop a confidence knowing that you can do it. And then it's yours. It's yours to have, and nobody can take it away from you. It's what you do. It's part of who you are. I know I'm not expressing it the way I want to, but it's so elemental to who I am that, and it's by no means, the most important thing in my life, although it's important in the sense that it's my thing, not because of money of doing it or whatever it might get you or this or that, but it's important in the sense that you have something that's yours. You have a talent. You have something that you can do. So look at it that way, and you have to filter out those things. I mean, I just find a serenity almost in a way of doing it. It's my haven. It's what I do. So when I trade, I embrace it. I'm never, like I said, I don't feel the pressure of it. You will learn those things as you go along and develop these your abilities. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you think I don't have personal issues? Oh my God, I have 1,000 personal issues, but I'm still on the mic every single day, right? I deal with a lot of things, many things, right? I come from a family of 9. So the more people, the more trouble, right? So it's like, trust me, like we all have problems. Everyone, that's human, that's life. It's just a matter of, putting on that work hat, right? And then now you're in the field, and you can't really let that take away from your work. That's just what it comes down to. And exactly what Bernie's saying.
I just figured out a way to make it more personal, because 4 weeks ago, today's Thursday, 4 weeks ago, I found out I had an aortic aneurysm, and I was shocked by it because I felt well, I felt great. It just blew my head apart. I did not miss a day of trading. I did not miss my work. As cloudy as it had me for a week, and I'm not in any danger. I'm going to be observed. I have to go back in 6 months, whatever. But I had to get my mind around all that stuff. I did not let it affect my trading. It did not affect my trading, as discombobulated as I was. So that was a stunner to me. I was like totally blown away by it. I traded, and I traded successfully. That's my thing. And if I, go out with my boots doing it, I'll be fine with that. I mean, but I'm not there. I don't think I'm there quite yet, dealing with the issue. So, and there is a corrective thing for it. So if I have to deal with that, I will. But apart from the time that I had to take going to see doctors and all, I did not let it affect what I do. And you just don't. You have to be, if you're going to do this seriously, it's like any other, as he said, it's your job. This is your job. So if you go to work and you bring your personal baggage to work, guess how long you're going to last? There Josh is saying that simplifies it, but it's very, very true. Very, very true. The trades that'll kill you are the ones you have the most conviction on. You have to know when to cut it. I just refuse to let anything cause me a big loss if I can avoid it.
And to touch what Bernie was saying there too, right? Like, so Bernie, he had very, very, very personal circumstance happening. He still went to work, and but sometimes we also need to take time off work, right? So it depends on you and the circumstances of the scenario that you're dealing with, right? So I normally don't take much time off, but for me, I had a situation back in October where I absolutely had to take a week off, right? Could I have still tried to make it work? Probably, right? But I wasn't in the right mental state to do so. So there's a time where where it's okay to take a day or two, a week. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's all relative to, if you think you're going to underperform working, you're better off not working at all, right?
For me, it's a little different. I'm more like that greyhound that sees the rabbit. So I'm just in a different place. I'm in a different zone.
Yeah, well, that's why I said it kind of depends on the
it does.
Severity, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. No, you have to know yourself. For me, it's a comfort. For me, it's like it was a bit of an escape, just not to have to think about something pretty grave I had to deal with. So the good thing is I found out about it. I found out by accident. I had a totally different test. It had nothing to do with looking for an. I didn't have any symptoms. I feel great. I'm living a healthier lifestyle for the last 9 months or so, and everything was great. But I had a calcium test. I have no heart disease. I don't have any hardening of the arteries. That's all good. I scored 0 on that test. But that test is what I urge everybody over 45 or over to get that test. You should have it anyway to know the health of your heart. But that's how they found that I had this. And had I not done it, I wouldn't even know. And then it's really dangerous. When you don't know, it's dangerous. When you have the knowledge and they can watch it, they can observe it. If it becomes necessary to do corrective procedure, there is a corrective procedure to do it. It's always worse not to know. So I was lucky. I found out. So in that I'm fortunate. But I do not let anything, I mean anything, affect my work when I'm doing it. I just don't. It doesn't happen to me. It just doesn't. No, I'm fine right now. Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking to Izzy. Sorry.
Okay, I think that's.
I hate push to talk.
Oh,
there we go.
Set up voice activation.
you can change it in the settings.
It said for the server I have to have set up push to talk.
Here, let me maybe move you to.
It doesn't matter. I can just hold on the key. It's not a big deal.
Ralph, I'm really curious to know, what.
But yeah, all I was really gonna say was just kind of a couple of things, I guess. It was kind of a lesson I learned as a kid to, when I'm doing anything, to give it 100%. So like if I'm trading, I'm doing nothing else. I might joke in the chat and stuff when I'm not doing anything else, but like actually focusing on what I'm doing and not trying to do 50 other things or browse the internet or talk to somebody. Like when I'm actually trading, I'm trading. It is a job. It's work. As much fun as it can be sometimes, it actually is work. So it's not something to mess around with. One of the big things I learned, because I actually gambled for a living for quite a number of years. I played poker, so that actually taught me something that worked well in sales and for this as well, and focusing on your decisions. Only the decisions. The outcomes I have no control over. If I can make a good decision, I can live with it, whether it's right or wrong, no matter how stupid it might be in the end. I didn't know that at the time. So as long as you do enough work, and the decisions you're making are good. I mean, you can't control what happens after that. You execute it, you hope for the best, basically. The market will go where it wants to. You can, no matter how much legwork you do, no matter how good your win rate is, there's going to be a certain amount of randomness that you just can't control. So, like, getting too worked up about it isn't going to help anything. That really helped with getting rid of the ups and downs. Like, wins don't feel that good, losses don't feel that bad. It's a job. It doesn't ruin my day if it went well, or I'm not able, I can still sleep at night if it went really well. It doesn't really matter either way. That was something that just took a lot of time staring at a screen to really be able to do, though, because at first, every time that you had a good trade, I wanted to tell everybody about it. I felt like the smartest person in the world. And, then the bad days, you want to go cry in the shower and pretend you're not alive anymore and you could disappear because you just feel so stupid. So just trying to be a little even keel and just focus on the decisions. That's been one of the biggest things that's kind of changed how I've traded. And trading a size that doesn't impact you is the other thing, especially with options. Things can be so volatile that typically if I'm trading, it's only 1 or 2% of my account at a time. So even in the absolute worst case scenario that goes to 0, I can still eat tomorrow. it's not gonna ruin my life or anything like that. But yeah, that's mostly it.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that. Ralph touched on something. Seth, I mean, it goes without saying. I don't know if you know, when you talked about focus, you do have to have a laser focus. When I'm doing this, I mean, I'm just in a different place, and it's all, it's all I'm about. Although I do a lot of things as I'm trading, because I'm actually calling stuff on a box. I'm trying to help people by delivering news or show them something, whatever. So I'm doing a lot of things. I'm not a bad multitasker. But the one thing that he touched upon that we haven't talked probably enough about is, and this is true of Izzy, and it's true of myself, and I'm sure it's true of Alex. We work like beasts. In other words, this doesn't fall out of the sky. I put in a lot of hours. I mean, when I'm preparing to do what I need to do. I know Izzy does. I'm sure that Alex does. I mean, you just have to really, the more work you can give, the better chance you have of a positive outcome. But it takes a lot of dedication. So, yeah, you have to. And you know what? In terms of talking to other traders and trying to help other traders, I always say this, and it's true. I always learn as much as I'm imparting. As much information or whatever, I always learn. And there's another thing too. Every single time I talk to traders, well, I'm not like you. I'm a little trader. I just nip that in the bud. We're all the same. The size of your trading is not relevant. It's what's your money is nobody's. Your money is not as important to anybody but you. It's most important to you, and that's all that matters. But we're all the same. We're all as good as our last trade. So there's no such thing as a little trader and a big trader. You can't think of yourself that way. You need to do what you need to do that will get you to where you want to get to, and it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It always bugs me when people post profit and loss online, because it's normally not a red one, number one. But number two, there's always somebody that hasn't had a miserable day. So why would you want to make somebody worse by making them feel like that? Look at that person, what they did, and what. So it's fine to kind of say, oh, I had a good day with this and that, but to go beyond that, I mean, there's always somebody who didn't have a good day, and the mental aspect of this is tough enough as it is. So why make somebody else feel worse? I try to I don't ever forget how it was when I started, how it was for me. So I'm sensitive to that, and I always try to be thoughtful of other traders. And I've gotten just as much, whatever time I put in to try to help somebody else, I got just as much or more back. I always learn something, and you never stop learning as a trader. You never stop learning, and you never stop trying to improve. So.
Yeah, that's really important. I agree. I think learning is really an important part of the journey, and the idea that you never stop, because really, anything that you're going to get good at, you have to love it. You really have to be passionate about it. I mean, the best of people in any of their fields are people who love what they do. And when you love what you do, it doesn't require the same amount of mental exertion to learn. In fact, you're passionate. You want to learn. Your mind is hungry.
That's funny. That was my next tweet tonight, Alex. I said, you can't pass passion. You can't pass that on to someone.
You really can't. You really can't. And so, but when you're really passionate and your fire is really burning, the other side of it is, trading can be very stressful. And if you really love it and you're really getting into it, sometimes you can get a little bit defined by how well you're doing. And I advise against that. I think whether you have a good day, a flat day, or a terrible day, you should walk away with all the stress of that trading, as something that you leave at your desk or that you deal with in a healthy outlet. You should not be taken into interpersonal relationships. How you treat your family or how you treat your friends if you had a good day or a bad day. It shouldn't affect your mood. If it's affecting your mood, you got to take a step back and ask yourself why. And this is something that I see a lot of traders, especially newer ones, getting emotional. Like Bernie was saying, and Izzy was saying, some people also boast and they'll post all their good days and they'll never tell us about their losers. That's telling us a lot. There's a lot of ego in that. There's a lot of projection going on in that. There's a lot of someone making up for something in that kind of behavior. I'm just saying. And so, when you're humble not only to the outside world, but also truly humble. Like, you realize you are always a student of the market. The market always has a lesson to teach you. And you're going to keep paying that tuition until you learn those lessons. And even afterwards, you may pay additional tuition, but it's okay. It's okay to be wrong. Like Bernie said, you just don't want to be wrong for long. You got to make that a brief situation so you can, get on to your next trade. Because the other thing about being wrong is it is an emotional energy vampire. You're feeling sorry for yourself if you let yourself slip into, oh, I'm wrong, but I know I'm right. The market's wrong, and how could this possibly be going against me? And you get to the cycle. Forget all that. That doesn't matter. Price is true. If the market tells you you're wrong, you're wrong. You lick your wounds, you move on to the next trade as quickly as you can because you don't want to pay the other cost. What's the other cost? It's the variable Izzy said we don't have control over. It's time. And there's an opportunity cost that you're paying if you're not putting on that next trade. And I'm not saying just go blindly over trade. You don't want to overtrade. You only want to trade when there's a setup that favors you. But if you're in a loser and you're not paying attention, you might not find that next setup. So like as Izzy and Bernie have said, and they both work really hard. I see it every time I'm in here and trading with you guys. This is something that requires a lot of energy and effort. This is not like what you might have seen on an Instagram post or a YouTube video where people just make it and all of a sudden within a week they've got a Lexus or a Bentley or whatever. No, this is a real job. It's legitimate work. There's multiple facets involved with being a successful trader. Everyone's got their style, and that's totally fine as long as you work it and you keep improving it and you have results that speak for themselves. Obviously, if you're trading and you keep losing money, you can't keep trading, right? You're not going to want to keep throwing good money after bad. You have to have a system that works. One thing that might help you motivate yourself is don't refund your trading account. Once you initially fund it with whatever portion of capital you're okay with losing 100% of, don't refund it. That way you're not tempted to blow yourself up. That way you're going to be taking really small positions until you get the confidence to do things that are of larger size. And maybe that larger size is because you did so well with those smaller positions that you built up your capital. Remember that the journey of trading is not just learning. Get behind the trade idea. As soon as you put it on, if you're nervous and you're sweating bullets, then why did you do the idea? Did you have the plan in advance? Did you understand your risk and your reward and have that all mapped out? If not, you're not trading, you're gambling. And I think everyone here is here because they don't want to gamble. I think we're all here because we want to trade. If we want to trade, that means we want to have a win rate that more than compensates for our loss rate so that we have a compound annual growth rate of our capital. We're running a fund in essence. And whether the time period of your trade is a minute, an hour, a day, a week, a month, it doesn't matter as long as you're generating profit on a consistent enough basis that you're not under any kind of financial pressure. Like if you're trying to do this for a full-time gig, manage your risk. It's like a business. You've got your seed capital. You got to grow that capital. What are you doing? You're trying to find things that you think, and the market is telling you perhaps are worth more than what they're selling for. And then you're hoping to sell those same things to someone who's willing to work, willing to pay you what is apparently a fair price. That's really what you're doing as a trader. You're really arbing, right? That's one of the things we're doing. So you got to get into that mindset too. And there's no right or wrong way. There are ways you don't want to do trading, of course, but there's no system that you can say, oh well, this version of technical analysis or this version of fundamental analysis or sentiment or whatever, this is the only way. No, there's no one true discipline. Everyone has a different system, and every successful trader I've met kind of has adapted their system to suit them, right? Because you have to learn the market, but you also have to find a system that works for you. And so, be patient with yourself. The biggest thing that I think that everyone listening, whether you're, really experienced or you're just doing this into your first week, patience is really important with yourself. You're going to have a lot of times where you're going to be questioning, why am I doing this? This is too much. I'm not going to succeed. And sometimes those are the times where you're actually at the precipice of success. because you're getting to the point where you're realizing that you're making these mistakes and it's not working out. So then you got to start to figure out, how do you turn it around? How do you get to the other side? And that's exactly what all this is about, because it's about forming those habits, getting into better behaviors, having that discipline, so that you are confident in the trades that you're putting on. And if they're not working, you take them off and you go to your next trade. And the other thing is, just one last thing I want to touch on is a bigger problem that I see with a lot of traders that are especially kind of newer to this is just thinking you always have to be in a trade. You don't always have to be in a trade. I'll be emphatic about this. You really don't always have to be in a trade. There are plenty of times where there's just nothing that needs to be put on. The risk doesn't make sense with the reward. You don't have to be looking through the entire universe of all the thousands of stocks out there and seeing if every single one might be a trade. Focus on the ones that you're familiar with. Get familiar with certain types of asset classes or stocks that you understand how they trade, because they have personalities. They really do. Like the market makers, the institutions behind them, there's different ways that they end up trading. Apple trades differently than Microsoft, trades differently than Tesla, trades differently than Nvidia. There's reasons for this. And if you get familiar with how these things trade, or if you get familiar with how the S&P trades, which trades differently than oil or gold or wheat, you start to learn those characteristics, and it helps you gain better insights into some of the tells that there might be. So that's the other thing that's really important, is master what it is that you want to trade, right? The more you understand it, the better results you're going to have over time. And those results are going to compound. You're going to keep growing your capital. As long as you're cutting those losses quickly and you're holding on to those winners as long as it makes sense until your exit's been reached, whether it's a time exit or a price exit or some combination, make your system work for you. There's always another opportunity too. Don't FOMO. Someone asked about FOMO earlier. Successful traders are not going to be FOMOing in and out of things, because FOMO does not make money. FOMO loses money. If you really are fearing on missing out, you have to ask yourself, why? Did the price just run 30%? Okay. So that means that many more people are in it, and you're probably one of the last to arrive. Do you really think it's going to run another 30%?
This is the problem, though, especially the environment we've been in. It actually does happen, but people don't tend to think about most of the situations where it doesn't do that. They see the one that does, and it's human nature. So you will have to fight against human nature, which is not a very natural thing to do. Of course, everybody wants, especially if you were thinking about doing something and you didn't do it, and then it goes. It's like, that was my trade, and then you're gonna chase it. You cannot. This is where there are so many areas of discipline, but one very basic one is don't chase. You'll only remember the ones that you didn't chase that worked. You won't remember like the 99 that you didn't chase that saved you money. But if you don't chase overall, you take care, Ralph. Thank you again. If you learn not to chase, you'll be so far better off. It is human nature to do it. It is just human nature. It's human nature when you suffer a loss to try and get it back too quickly. That's human nature too. You can't do that. I always tell people, if I make a hold early, if somehow I'm red on it in a particular day, I just try to make the day a little bit better. I don't ever quit. I don't ever stop. Some people say, well, when I reach my limit of loss, and I don't do that. I trade. I'm there. So, but what I do is I try to say to myself, don't try to all of a sudden find some massive winning trade to get all the money back at once. Just try to make the day a little bit better. And if you take that approach, you'll be surprised at how many of those days you can retrieve when you are in that situation. Hopefully you won't be in that situation, but inevitably you will be. So when that happens, I like to tell people, just try to make the day a little bit better. Don't try to do some epic trade to get what you lost back. It doesn't work that way. You'll only make the hole bigger. You'll only make it worse by doing that. So those are kind of specific things, but it's just human nature. A lot of what Alex is warning you about, you're going to feel. And it's one thing for us to sit here and tell you, but it's quite another to go ahead and try to actually resist what your nature is, going to tempt you to do. It's constant temptation. Been doing this for over 45 years. I still get tempted to do something I shouldn't do. And if you do it, recognize it quickly and just cut it. I don't care if the idea ends up being the right thing. You You don't want to go down that road. People ask me why I don't do certain types of trades, why I don't do certain kinds of speculations, and my answer is because if I do it, then I'll do it. It'll just take me in a direction that over time won't work for me. So I want to stick to what works for me, and a lot of time that means you have to choose some type of trade that either has too much risk or for whatever reason it's not suited to me. And a lot of the times when I'm on the box, I'll point out a trade that looks tempting, and I'll say, no, I won't do that. It's too thin. It doesn't have enough volume. And for newer traders, people out, when I'm trying to help somebody, and I always tell them, if you only can remember three things that I've told you: volume, volume, volume. It is your friend. It is your friend. You do not want to lose money because you did something that's illiquid. And you can't get out of it if the idea doesn't work. You have to think I don't really kind of worry about the upside. My good trades take care of themselves. I worry about what I might lose in a trade. And if I stick to a trade that has adequate volume and adequate liquidity, those things are cushions. Those things are buffers if a trade doesn't work. You want to be able to get out of something. And if you can't get out of something without taking a large loss, then you've done the wrong thing. I mean, sometimes you get hit by a piece of news, and no matter what you do, you can do all the right things, and something can still happen. But for the most part, if you think of those things, if you think of the risk, then you won't do something that will get you in trouble. Or you're less likely to do it. I should put it that way. No, anyway, I could talk for hours about this stuff. So, and I left to my own devices, I would. I mean, I enjoy it. I love it, and I would just go on forever. But if anybody has questions, please ask them. Please feel free.
Yeah, this is the time to do so. So maybe we'll do like 10, 15 minutes or so if you guys have any other questions or points that you guys wanted to add.
And I wanted to just also say, if you feel the temptation to chase and something's just gapping up, ask yourself where your support is. Where's this thing going to pull back to? Does it just run that hard? You got to understand your risk. It's just like Bernie said, like he's worrying about his risk. The reward can take care of himself because his trades are going to be, based on that model where the reward is greater than the risk. So as long as you can repeat that and get out, when you're wrong early, you're not going to be as tempted to chase. You're not going to be try to run out everything that's moving. And there's plenty. And the thing is, like, FOMO is generally the idea of scarcity. That there's not going to be another opportunity, right? That's the biggest driver of FOMO. Oh, I missed out. You aren't missing out. There's a million other opportunities. I cannot stress that enough. There are a million other opportunities.
Always
so what I like to say, yes, always another trade. So what I like to say is FOMO leads to oh no. So just don't do FOMO. And if y'all have any questions, please drop them in. We'll be here for a bit longer. And, this has gone well. So I'm sure we'll be able to try to do something like this for y'all again in the future. Is he willing? But I think this is awesome.
Yeah, I think we should do an actual webinar. BK and I were talking about that. Obviously, I'm not prepared to do a webinar today. But in the future, I think we could probably host like a 2,000 person webinar. I think this would benefit a lot of people.
Yeah. I agree.
We should go all night. Everybody want to go all night?
If you want to do the pre-market stream tomorrow, Bernie, it's all yours.
That's right. That's right.
The other thing that I would say is if you've gotten yourself beaten up a couple times and your confidence is low, come back to this like it's boot camp. Just come back to it like you're a first-time trader. Like, okay, you're not feeling it. You had some bad trades. You don't really, feel like you have your bearings in the market. Then just start from scratch, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact,
perfectly correct. That's 100% correct. When that happens, every trader, I don't care who it is, every trader will hit a patch where things aren't going the way that trader wants them to be. When it happens to me, I just do what Alex just said. I reset. I'll slide down. Start back up, and then do it. Then gradually, as I get my confidence back, or I get my mojo back, then I'll just size back up again. But it's not nothing shameful. I just have it reset when you're not going well. Very important to recognize real quickly. The faster you recognize it, then the more money you will save yourself, and you just go back to square one. It happens every trader. people have to. The one thing is, you know, once you develop proficiency, don't ever doubt it. Don't ever doubt that you can do what you know you can do. And you know, no matter how bad of a patch I might have, I never doubt. I never let the doubt come in. So I will, you know, have to deal with whatever's going wrong. But you don't doubt yourself. It's really important not to lead to bad things.
Agreed. I think that no matter how good or bad we're doing, we should treat ourselves well. You know, and I think it's really important, and Izzy and Bernie and myself have emphasized this several times, but I'm going to emphasize it again because it's so important. Humility. Be humble.
Humble.
This is not about beating the market. This is not about beating your friend. This is not about beating some imaginary goal you have in your head. This is about taking cues from the market and turning them into opportunities where you can make money. This is about repeating that until you get proficient at it. Now, yeah, it doesn't sound as sexy as earning a Bentley next week, right? Because it's not. Real trading is real work. There's a system, and that system is different for every single trader. You're going to come up with your own system. And that system, humble enough to listen to the message of the market.
Market will tell you. You know, people always say to me, well, what makes you go? What makes you decide to do a trade or not do a trade? You know, I'm a pretty short-term trader, obviously by definition in terms of what I do, but I'm always watching that minute volume. And if it's not there, I don't care what the price is doing. Price is meaningless to me. I want not meaningless, I should say it that way, but it's secondary to me. If it's priced without above normal volume, I don't want it. I don't go there. I don't need to go there because I know I'll get one that does have what I want. So I wait. I wait for my pitch. I wait for what suits me. And but I don't see how. I don't want to speak in absolutes, but I don't see how somebody who's doing this doesn't come back to that. You know, doesn't come back to the flow and the volume of something. That is kind of the mother's milk here. That's you know, things don't go and do well. You might get a breakout on light volume. It will fail so many times on you. If you know, I mean, it would just take you in such a bad place. You want to have your decisions based on price can lie. You know, when you're looking at a level 2, they can lie about price. And I always tell people to watch the bid side. I said, what do you mean watch the bid side? Watch what's traded. I mean, when I'm watching level 2, I'm watching with the time and sale, so I can see what's actually going off. That won't lie to you. That won't lie to you. And I can pick up a lot of things from that. And if I see a bid that's getting hit that should break that doesn't, I know where that stock is going. And if a stock that's moved, is it pulling? Is it pulling back? I know these things sound very basic. It works. I promise you it works. I promise you it works. And you know, relative action in an environment like this, well, at least on the down days, relative action, simple concept. It will really help you watch, observe. It's pattern recognition. What we do is pattern recognition. That's what it is. And the sooner you can get the hang of that, recognize
exactly.
Patterns. I mean,
that's why screen time, personally, sorry, Bernie, screen time is way more valuable than paper trading. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I just don't. So to me, paper trading is equivalent to having a fake baby doll and trying to practice how to have a child and care for a child with plastic. It's the same thing, right? What happens when you have a real baby and the baby starts choking? It's the same thing. It's like when you're in a real-time trade. Well, you don't really know what to do because you never actually spent the time focusing on the screen time, right? You're mostly just, you're trying to, I don't know how people always recommend that. I've never understood it. We actually never had paper trading as even an option in Canada. So maybe that, for me, I was fortunate with that, but I've just never understood it.
Alejandro, it will give you a false sense of security because executions in paper trading land aren't the same as real executions.
Yeah.
So it's just a fact. And that's what's so I think dangerous about it.
So what I would say, you know, for people that are tempted to use paper trading, I would take a completely different approach. If you're really wanting to experiment with the theoretical, try back testing. try putting together strategies that you might consider using in the market, but back test them over 10, 20, 30 years of data, and then try to gain better confidence for those strategies, but execute them in the actual market, right? So you can have this sort of idea of a simulation, but you're not simulating your trading. You're testing the validity of your strategies and your signals. And, you know, TrendSpider and TradingView and all that, they have these types of platforms. There's stuff you could do in Python, and some brokers even have this kind of stuff.
Bar chart has one too. I just found out yesterday. There's lots.
Nice.
People have
So yeah, I mean, there's lots of great options out there, and it's a way that you can test theory, which is nice to be able to do outside of the market without risking capital. But if you're actually trading, like if you really want to learn how to trade and learn how the markets work, like paper trading is just not the same experience at all. It's completely holographic. It's very idealized. You don't have any actual capital at work, so you don't really understand the risk reward process. So I would discourage paper trading because I think it forms bad habits and bad behaviors. And I would encourage more theoretical tests, test systems, use back testing. I think that's a much better way to gain confidence as a trader.
You know, as we're talking about this, there's a very, I think, important point to make. It's great that we're talking about all these things, and I think it'll be helpful to folks and all that. There are some things that only time will give you, and that's, you know, I would say a knowledge of a lot of different stocks, and not necessarily in a very granular way, but just to have knowledge about what the company does and what its symbol is without having to look and all that. It just, those are things I don't have to think about because I've been doing this for so long, and that's an advantage that you can only get by doing. You know, you can't read it in a book. You can't, you know, in other words, you have to gather that information in your head and have it there, knowing how something may act in a certain situation, knowing the character of each individual stock. That's something you discover with time, you learn with time. Nobody can give you that. That's something you're going to have to put the hours in for. And Alex and Izzy will tell you the same thing. You have to put the hours in. You have to put the time in. And it's okay if you don't have that time, then you do a different kind of investing. You do a different type of investing that's longer term, not so much a trade. You can still do it, but it's not going to be trading oriented. It'll be more longer term investing that you don't have to be on top of everything. You don't have to, you know, you can get that knowledge on an individual stock or have somebody do it for you. You don't need it, but if to trade actively, those things you only get for time, and they're really essential because sometimes speed is a really vital element to a good trade. If you miss a trade, you let it go. You miss the trade. But time is, there's some things that only time can give you. You have to be cognizant of that. You have to be willing to put the time in.
Yes, yes. And I think for part of that, you really have to find the passion within yourself to want to trade, to be willing to lose money. And you have to remember, you know, this is one of the few jobs where you go in and you could leave the day with a negative paycheck. That can happen in trading. And it's not a bad thing because you can certainly more than make up for it, but it is a risk of doing business that we all have to become comfortable with as a part of doing that business. Because if not, then we might find ourselves doing some silly things like cutting winners before they're ready to be harvested because we're so worried about a potential loss. So psychology, you know, the whole topic that we're covering here, it's really key to successful trading. You can be your own best friend, or you can very easily be your own worst enemy. And the newer and less experienced that you are, the more likely it is that you may inadvertently be your own worst enemy. It doesn't have to be that way. And often is the case, there's just really simple problematic behaviors that have to be corrected. Ego, risk management, discipline, you know, these are things that we talked about. These are things that we all feel are really important, having traded for quite a long time. And so we want to just imbue that upon you. But as Bernie said, you know, there are some things that we just have to experience for ourselves in order to really have that set in. So we can talk and we can talk a lot, and I'm sure we could all talk all night long, although I don't want to put that kind of strain on Izzy's voice. She talks quite enough, and she does a great service for us.
I'm just letting you guys do all the talking today. I'm just sitting there.
That's fair. I totally understand and appreciate the opportunity to talk to your awesome group here. I would just say, you know, look, we're all here to try to help. One of the things about this world of trading, this community, is the quality people, the successful traders are some of the most generous people you're ever going to meet. They are so amazing in the sense that they're willing to share their time, their knowledge, to try to help other people succeed. There are very few industries that are like that. There are very few sectors of the economy that are like that. I mean, I've come from a couple different areas like tech and other parts of finance where information is guarded behind lock and key, where what you learn is something you have to take a course on. And in a lot of finance, it's like that too. But in trading and in parts of investing, there's so much community-oriented knowledge sharing. So if you get good at trading, the one last thing I ask of you is pay it forward. Teach someone else, mentor others. Let's keep it going.
All right, awesome, guys. I think we can probably wrap it up here. 9:30 Eastern, it's getting late. Thank you so much, Bernie and Alex, for tonight's session. I enjoyed listening here too myself.
It's
You guys are awesome.
always a pleasure. You didn't give me much notice, but I notice I'm here.
No, I know. Thank you so much. I hardly gave Bernie notice. Well, we weren't really planning on doing this. Alex and actually someone in the, not Alex, sorry, someone in the group suggested it to me.
I'd be here.
Broke Break actually suggested it to me last night, and I saw it this morning, and I was like, you know what, that's probably a good idea, right? And why not? We could for sure do that. And even right now, when I'm going through Twitter on that post that I posted, it's exactly those kind of people that you see that are just, no matter what, they're going to be negative, right? Like saying things like trading isn't for everyone. It's not learning from your mistakes, right? It's just some people don't have the skill set. And again, that's kind of like where it goes back where, yes, it is a skill set, right? But, right, it is about learning from your mistakes, because like anything in life, if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're going to keep repeating them, right? So like, I don't believe that a lot of the trading aspects to becoming better at this isn't from learning from your mistakes. It's just, it is, right? Of course, there's specific skill sets you need in order to make it work. I don't disagree with that comment, but it's how do you achieve those skill sets? What do you have to do to capture those skills? And usually it results in learning from your mistakes. Do you know what I mean? It's a circle. You have to kind of learn from what you did wrong. And usually what you did wrong is skills that you weren't utilizing or using, right? So, but you won't know what they are. So people like him, they're not accountable. So they would rather just say that it doesn't matter if they learned from the mistakes or there was no mistakes, it's just not for them. Those are the kind of people that usually just, they give up because they're not accountable. And a lot of trading, you have to be accountable for what you're doing. That's just what it comes down to.
And every day is a trial by fire. You got to do your best not to get burned out by the stress and the pressure, and that's part of trading. But it's part of it that makes it exciting. There's an adrenaline rush. There is a lot of exhilaration. You shouldn't get too excited from a dopamine aspect, but there is a serotonin aspect to trading. And maybe next time we have a talk or a seminar on psychology, we can talk a little bit more about some of the neurotransmitters involved, and some of the neuropathways involved, and some of the processes we can take to try to accelerate that process of developing better kind of reactions on a neurological level and better reflexivity. But ultimately, everyone, just keep trying, keep being patient with yourself. Try to fade your emotional reactions. It's okay to feel. Don't let those feelings decide what you're going to do with your money, right? And I think you'll do a lot better if you can remove any idea of your ego from your trades. Come into every trade with a plan. Make sure you understand your risk and reward before you hit the buy or sell button. And you can become a better trader every day by just going through these steps and just being patient with yourself.
The more prepared you are, the less prone you will be to some of the emotions that can take you off track. It just takes the effort to do it. And, the more you do it, the more you'll learn. And rule number one is anything can happen. So you have to be ready for that anything. And knowing how to respond respond in certain situations. And the better prepared you are, the less prone you will be to to acting out of emotion instead of being cool and calm and doing. Because think about it, none of that stuff will help you in that situation. And so the better prepared you are, the better off you will be. And I guess somebody mentioned sleep, and I think Alex did. It's really it's important as what you eat and exercise and anything. It's always shocking to me that so many people have sleeping issues. It's really important to get the proper amount of sleep and not neglect that, because you will do a lot of damage to yourself. I mean, just don't take my word for it. You go read the scientific studies on it. There's short-term sleep and there's long-term sleep. You need to be caught up on both. So don't do yourself that disservice. I know a lot of people who are in great physical shape. They exercise, they eat well, and their sleeping's a disaster. And it's just as important as all the other things you might do to be healthy. So really important in terms of getting good rest. Hopefully doing it without supplements. If you could do it on your own, that's the best way. I don't even like to take aspirin. So now I'm forced to take certain things. But anyway, sometimes you have to, it's necessary. But the sleep is a really important issue. I know it sounds kind of basic and all, but it's critical. It really is.
It's probably more critical than most people think too. Like, your brain is repairing itself and scrubbing memories it doesn't need, and rebuilding any kind of areas that might be damaged where it can repair them, even rebuilding brain cells. That all happens while you're sleeping. And actually exercise is a part of it too. So if you exercise the day before and then you go to bed that same night, you're more likely to be able to regenerate brain cells that may otherwise be damaged. And so, the exercise component, the sleep component, the diet, which is the basic building blocks of every part of our body, it all goes together. You'd say, well, why does this matter for trading? I'm just buying or selling. Because you want to be in optimal physical and mental health, because that's how you're going to be at your best self. And only when you are at your best self are you going to be able to trade your best. And again, like Sandman says, it sounds simple. It's not. That's like taking all the little loose facets of our life and organizing them into neat little cubbies. It seems simple on the surface, but it requires a lot of effort. And again, the D word, discipline.
Sound body, sound mind.
And speaking of sleep, I think we should all be looking at getting to it soon. So we'll wrap this up. Really appreciate
There we go. That was a nice segue, Alex.
I was just waiting for one of you guys to say something. I don't know. I didn't want to be. All right. I probably won't upload this tonight, guys. I'll probably upload this tomorrow or over the weekend. It's going to take a while to save, and I want to cut it into two breaking points here from the first part of the session to the second. So I'll try to have this uploaded tomorrow. Get some sleep. Let's have a good Friday, last day of the week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Appreciate you all. Have a good night. Hopefully this hit home for a lot of you.
Everybody be well.
Take care.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.